UFC 252 coming up this weekend from the promotion's Apex facility. You got a $100 million facility. You have to pay for it somehow, and it's with fights like this between downtown TJ Brown and the Colombian Warrior Danny Chavez. Matt, a lot of people might be familiar with TJ Brown, guy that came into his UFC debut taking on a really tough out in Jordan Griffin, the native psycho. And it was a good fight. It was a fight that TJ Brown was arguably, and I don't think it's much of an argument, he was winning it until he just slowed down a little bit. Jordan Griffin had an ounce of an effort, and he had a nice choke. Slip up there. All right, TJ Brown, a guy that came in from Contender Series, had a big win over Dylan Lockhart that I actually had a chance to see fighting with NEF over in Maine, getting a shot with a win over Jesse Erickson. So it was a big one there for Brown. He's fought some names that you might recognize. Also has a win over Peter Barrett that competed last weekend against Yusuf Zalal. So TJ Brown, you know kind of what you're going to get. We'll talk about him a little bit more, but I really do think that the shine has to go to the UFC newcomer in Danny Chavez, a guy that fought not that long ago, back in July. He became the Global Legion FC featherweight champ with a win over Dylan Kala. And an interesting one. Now I'm going to go through Danny Chavez's record because he's got a fight against Jason Soares that people might recognize, a guy that fought with, or still is with Titan. He's a champion there. He's one of those guys that you might have looked to make that next step, whether a Contender Series or just an automatic call-up with the UFC. I know he was on that episode of Looking for a Fight, and they talked about some of his fights there, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But Danny Chavez has a fight against him, but it was 4 years ago, so you can't put a lot of stock into it. He took about 2 years off, so from 2018 to now, 3 wins in a row, 3 first-round knockout or TKO finishes. But the trouble for me is, so he wins over Kala this past summer. Kala, his opponent, on a 2-year layoff. The fight before that against Pipe Vargas, a guy, maybe I'm mispronouncing it. It could be Pipe, but I'm quite sure it's Pipe Vargas. At 6-0. His last opponent's combined record, 10-5. The most experienced guy that he had taken on was 6-0 at the time. We're talking 1-0 fighters, 0-0 fighters, and the like. Don't want to discredit it. I'm just trying to kind of paint a picture here. The other guy to kick off this win streak, Leandro Magalhães, was 8-8 coming off a 1.5-year long layoff. So that's kind of who Danny Chavez has been taking on. But again, don't want to discredit anything because these are first-round wins that definitely matter.
Exactly, and that's what I was just about to say. When you look at the level of competition, it doesn't always matter who you fought, it's how you fought them and how you ended up winning. And when we do talk about Danny Chavez, his striking is very good for a guy coming off the regional scene. And I think this is going to be a super entertaining fight. Very much probably the reason why they put it as the first fight on the evening, because TJ Brown coming off that Jordan Griffin loss, it was kind of a frustrating loss because it was one of those things where, other than his cardio, he did everything right. He was able to keep his distance. He was good striking. He had good wrestling. Really was showcasing a fairly well-rounded set of skills. And then the cardio kind of came into question. Jordan Griffin slowly took over from that point. But I don't think, he's not really going to have to worry about the wrestling or really the submission offense of Danny Chavez. Much more of a striker. What he is going to have to worry about is if Chavez starts landing those low calf kicks that we talk about a lot. Chavez has great Muay Thai, and if he is able to land those early calf kicks, really put that money in the bank early on into the fight, it'll start to show off. And especially if TJ Brown, we don't really know where his cardio is going to be going into this fight, but if his cardio is compromised at any point, near the end of the second going into that third round with those low calf kicks starting to add up, I would not be surprised if Danny Chavez walked away with a win.
I was kind of surprised because I listened in, and friend of the show from Between Rounds Radio, Ryan Gerald, who's covering the Bellator fights this weekend as we tape this, had the opportunity to talk to TJ Brown. And we're talking early August, the first week. He said, TJ, what do you come in to weigh in for this? So he's making the cut to 45. At the time, he said he weighed 164 to 163, something around there, which is fair. A lot of guys cut, the 10 or 15 pounds right before the fight. So it makes sense. But he said before the Griffin fight, he was up to like 180, which is insane for a guy cutting down to 145. And he's not the tallest guy in the world at 5'9". He is a bigger guy, that's for sure. So I was a little bit surprised there. It's going to be an interesting fight because, like you said, Danny Chavez is a great striker. And again, I wouldn't want to take anything away from the wins that he has. He's a guy that's been at MMA Masters for a long time. You might know MMA Masters from such fighters as, a guy that's really been there and done that at this weight class, Ricardo Lamas, or Colby Covington. He's an MMA Masters guy now. Or Jay Glazer from Season 1, Episode 6 of Ballers when he trained with The Rock. So there's that. But overall, I'm interested in this fight because TJ Brown, the more recognizable name, minus 240 favorite. Danny Chavez coming in around a plus 170 underdog. If you look over in Tapology, limited sample size, this fight was just announced. 196 voters. 88% going with Brown to get the win, 59% predicting a decision. I think that's a safe side. I'm going to err on the safe side. I think TJ Brown, if it goes into a longer fight, you're probably going to see a fast start out of Chavez that you've seen recently. Again, short notice fight. And you're going to see Brown try and grind out a win, whether it's by submission, whether it's by decision. I'm going to go with TJ Brown.
I got to be honest, I'm going underdog to start the night early. I think the Colombian Warrior is going to be able to get it done just because cardio is such a big issue, and it's not like you can just fix it fight to fight. I understand a really strong weight cut or a really bad weight cut can contribute to it, but just saying, oh, I'm lighter now, I'm not going to get tired, talk's kind of cheap in that respect. I know Chavez, a lot of his fights have been early stoppages, so you don't really know his cardio going into those later rounds. But I'd rather an unknown over something that I already know is not great in TJ Brown's cardio. So I'm going with the underdog. I think Chavez can be able to invest in those low kicks, kind of wear Brown down as the fight goes on, and be able to get the decision win.
Matt, I'm really looking forward to this fight. UFC debut from Danny Brown. You got Danny Chavez. You got TJ Brown making his second time out. You're not going to want to miss the rest of our picks for the card. It's a 12-fight card. You get a great main event. We're going to give it an extended look in the trilogy fight for GOAT status at heavyweight between Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. And as we always say, let's get into it.